Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the TFZ Crown. This is the latest flagship from TFZ, a brand that has been around for many years now, and a brand that I myself particularly have enjoyed some of their IEMs over the year. Lately, as of let's say 2-3 years this side, it's been a bit of a roller coaster with one good release, one release which is not so good, one good release, one release which is not so good. And I guess it's down more to the fact that they've basically become stuck to their traditional way of tuning, which is huge bass always, prominent mid bass, and then mids and upper mids and treble done in a somewhat peaky manner. You know, depends on the model, but usually you get peaks at around 2K and then 4.5, and then peak a little bit later. Some models they peak maybe at 2.5, then about 5.5, and then a little bit later. But it's always let's say an old style of tuning. Which, granted, and you know, merit must be given when it's due, they have actually been able to master that style of tuning. And some of those IEMs, even though they have that craziness in the tune, which, you know, for some might be completely pointless, they do sound good. They might not be ultimately the most let's say technically proficient, or the most correct sounding, or the most unfatiguing, but they always deliver a bundle of fun when it comes to how they reproduce music. Anyway, this is the crown. This is the basic sleeve on the outside, and you can see straight away from the appearance of the crown that it's got this very I would say Art Deco steampunk kind of look, which honestly, it's what captivated me, to be totally truthful. When I saw it, that is immediately what attracted my attention. On that faceplate, as you can also see, there's a capacitor, a resistor, and a switch, an on-off switch, which is a circuit that they've integrated into the IEM to control basically its impedance. It's kind of a Zobel network to control its impedance and certain frequencies, how they are affected by that impedance. And it does work. It does work, and the switch is also doing its work. So kudos to them. It's not just there to be pretty. It's there and it's doing something. Anyway, in the back there's some characteristics. They are available in gold and silver and gold and gray. I've got the gold silver one. All right, so that's that there. The box itself, as you can see, it's a big box. You take away this protective cover. The IEMs came over there with the cable wound up over here. Actually, there. All right, and I'll show it to you in a second. All right, and then the rest of the accessories come in this drawer that opens on the side, where we find the actual case, which I'm going to take it out, and over there it's a box with all the tips and the remainder of the accessories. Okay, so that's the box. Nice presentation. It looks the part. A little bit big maybe, but it looks really good. It looks smart, and it kind of let's say justifies to a certain extent the $219 price tag. I got this unit from PENON, and as far as I know, I haven't seen it being sold by anybody else but PENON. Okay, anyway, that's the box. Let me just finish up here with the rest of the accessories. So we've got some tips here, which kind of are like the LITZ tips, okay, which is actually what I'm using on the actual IEM. So we got those tips. Then we have some more generic ones, which kind of the KB ear has got this type of tip as well. All right, so that's those ones there also out of the way. And we have some foams, some basic foams, nothing. Let's see this. I'll open it up without me tearing it. There we go. We got a set of foam tips. There we go. All right, so tips, it's fine. It's got a good selection. They actually do work fine with the IEM, so I didn't have to resort to the alternative tips that I sometimes do use. I measure them as well, and it sounds perfect with the tips, with the stock tips. The case, very nice case with the logo here. It looks really, really smart. And again, you look at this case and you get this very much this Art Deco kind of vibe to it. It looks really, even the actual logo, very, very, very smart. I personally like it, at least. Okay, it's got well, the cable is modular, so there's the other tips for the cable, 3.5 and 2.5. Some more tips of the stock ones. Okay, and then the cable and the IEM. I'm going to start with the cable. The cable is okay, but honestly, I was expecting, I mean, it is $219, so I was expecting something a little bit more along the lines of this. I mean, this is the Tigerism, the Octave, and you can see the cable. It just looks, it looks the part. Okay, maybe it doesn't sound as good, but which is not the case because the cable is actually pretty decent, but it just looks the business, you know. And when you are considering this whole kind of steampunk Art Deco style, I think a nicer cable would have been you know, a more adequate finishing touch. It uses, obviously, the plug is modular here, but then on the other end it uses that TFZ style of plug, which means that this is going to have to be a plastic termination. And again, I would have liked to have seen, since it is their flagship, I would have liked to have seen this maybe in metal. That would have been nice. The IEMs themselves, the shape, it's a shape which you've seen being used by many other IEMs. It's not a new thing. Metal, full metal, and then this faceplate and the components, and it just looks very, very unique, very different, very cool. It's got another little touch there, as you can see. It just looks, honestly, it looks very, very smart. I have to say, with regards to its appearance, it scores top marks for me. I can understand it might not be to everybody's you know, liking, but it just looks very, very smart, really very smart. Okay, anyway, that's the IEM in terms of its appearance. In terms of the fit, it's got a nice weight to it, and yes, you do have to be a little bit careful with the tip that you choose, because the tip will help in keeping the earphone in its place. So, you know, I have to admit to that, but once you do find the tip, it's not an issue. Okay, anyway, what have I selected here? I could have gone, as you guys know, that fortunately I can do that because I've accumulated a number of IEMs over the years. I could have gone out now and brought out all the IEMs, single DDs, at this price tag of 219 plus give or take, but we would be here forever. So I tried to condense this, and especially I tried to bring IEMs which are more similar to this tuning of style that they have here. As opposed to the SimGot EA1000, which has got a more Harman kind of tune. The remainder of the IEMs that are here have got very alternative tunings, in the sense that have big bass or bigger upper mids, big mids, big mids, and, you know, up mids, upper mids, and treble or emphasized. They've all got their own very specific manner of being tuned, and all of them work. They do sound good. That's the reality. Although maybe graphically you might not be impressed, when you do actually listen to them, they do sound good. So what have I selected? And this is for you to actually get an idea of where this stands and what this can be, than necessarily me saying, no, this is better than this or better than that, or, you know, all right? This I'm not trying to place a position for the crown here, but I'm rather trying to position it next to others in terms of what it has better, what it has worse, what to expect ultimately. Okay, the cheapest IEM that I've got here, and I've got it here because I've always been a very big fan of the Venture Electronics, the CA. From the first time I listened to it, I thought it was just, and you know, really, really good. It is a very heavy IEM, heavier than the crown. I mean, this is really heavy. Okay, also single dynamic inside, but it's a 10mm as opposed to the crown's 12mm. And from what I understand, this is the 5th generation of a driver that has been now under development for about 9 years. So over the years, they've developed and improved it constantly. So this is a 12mm driver on the crown. On here, on the CA, it's a 10mm. All right. From what I understand, it's a aluminum magnesium diaphragm. Next to that, I've got the Tigerism, the Octave, which has got a 10mm as well. Well, just over 10mm. Apparently, this IEM also uses the same driver as the MIM Dark Magician. It's exactly the same driver, although it's been tuned slightly different. Like I mentioned before, they all have, very, let's say, unharmonish kind of tunings. But this one is probably the one that approximates itself to a certain extent a little bit more than the rest, okay? Of course, the crown, the EA1000, no need to elaborate too much. Then I've got here the wind, which the BQ wind, which I also thought would be interesting to have, because again, it's got its very specific type of tuning, so it made sense to have it here. And then finally, I've got here the Tri I1, which is an IEM that basically I ended up never reviewing it, not because I didn't want to be, but because I just forgot. So I will try and talk a little bit more as well about the I1 in this review, so that I do it justice, because like I said, it was an IEM that I really didn't give much love. In terms of pricing, what can I what is it? $110, $159, $219, and this the Tri, I believe it's $249. So this is actually the most expensive one. In terms of the price being the most expensive but being justified, I would say so, because the cable and the accessories that come with the i1 are really good. They've got they bring the Tri tips, as you can see here, okay, the clarions, and the cable as well. You can have it separately, and it's about $140 or $150. So they've accessorized it well. It's probably one of the nicest cables out of all of these that I've got here. Okay, this is not the stock cable. This is not the stock cable as well. This is an alternative cable that SimGod has. This is also a upgraded cable that they have here for the BQYZ Wind. So the stock cables here really are this one and this one. And this one, obviously, and out of these three, this is the better one. Okay, so sound. What is the sound profile? What can we expect here from the crown? The crown follows that TFZ recipe of the crazy bass, although over here they've relaxed the mid bass substantially, and what that does, or what that has done, is open up the sound completely and totally in terms of the mids and upper mids and treble. So if, for example, in previous models from TFZ, like for example I've got here the Killer Pro, that emphasis on the bass and on the mid bass was quite significant, and as well on the Live X, as you can see here, all right, and which that brought with it, of course, the fact that it was going to be an IEM that technically maybe wasn't the ideal, and it was definitely colored and definitely overemphasized in specific parts of the frequency. It just struggled if it wanted to be a little bit more audiophile. But one thing is for sure, that the Killer Pro, if you're looking for a bassy IEM, this thing has got it's got bass by the tons, and it's not bass by the tons, and it's not good quality bass. Now this is really good quality bass, really good. It's powerful, it's strong, it's like it hits you like a hammer. Seriously, really good. This has got that same sort of bass in the lowest parts of the bass, so in the, let's say, 70 and below. But then it's been very well brought back in terms of the mid bass. So in terms of, yes, there being still some bleeding to the mids, yes, it exists, but it's been very much controlled. And what that ultimately has done is provide us with a very nice presentation in the vocals, although slightly recessed, but it's got a really nice vocal presentation, and a sufficient and ample presentation as well in the upper mids and treble, although there's not much extension after that. So after, let's say, 8-9K, things kind of die out, but that area there just before it dies out has been nicely emphasized, coupled with a nice sub-bass focused bass. Yes, you do notice that the middle part there is a little bit more relaxed, more second place, but somehow the whole thing just comes together very nicely, and it sounds fun, it sounds engaging. Fair enough, it's not going to be neutral. It's if that's your thing, if you want a neutralish kind of more sounding IEM, this is not the IEM for you. There's other IEMs which are going to be better options. This is a person that likes a big sound. Relatively easy to drive. So if you like a big sound, it's relatively easy to drive, and you want to have fun, this is definitely the IEM for you. I can guarantee you that much. Although, and like I mentioned, compared to previous models from TFZ, it is way more versatile in its music genres that it can perform. Okay, so that's in a nutshell basically the frequency, or the way it responds across the frequency range. Technically, decent detail retrieval, decent soundstage, is on the more, let's say, cozy side. It's relatively big, but not stadium big. Okay, so imaging pretty decent, especially if you consider the crazy amount of bass that you are getting from it. It does a good job. Resolution as well does a good job, and the timbre and the tonality, for me at least, it's very correct. It's a little bit of overemphasis maybe here and there on the occasional song or on the occasional instrument. Maybe guitars could have been just a little bit more realistic, but it's one of those IEMs, like I've said many times before. I don't mind that the timbre and tonality isn't 100% perfect, because the overall thing, the overall package, the overall performance is a very agreeable one. And so I can deal with it not being absolutely spot on. Okay? Comparing it then, or kind of setting the stage with regards to other IEMs, how can I put this? Well, this is got crazy amounts of bass. It's most likely the most bassy IEM here, on par with the Trio i1. And it's very evident when you listen to the CA and you listen to that the bass here is really quite emphasized. Other than that, they actually sound very similar. So if it's a song that doesn't have as much bass to kind of allow the C to show that amount of bass that it has, or if I EQ it purposely down like I did as well to try it, the rest is very similar. They graph very similarly. The difference that then does exist is that this got loads of extension past 10K, and you notice that little bit more of twinklies and sparklies. Okay. On the crown, let's not forget one thing. We have that switch that's on the faceplate. I listened to it with the switch on, which is the where it actually emphasizes that area that I was mentioning earlier, before it finally starts dipping down. So I'm talking about from around, let's say, 4.5K until about 9K, it gets emphasized with the switch on. With the switch off, it gets more kind of neutralish. But that darkens the sound quite significantly, in my opinion, and shuts down a lot of detail that is lost. So it makes it, I would say, fair enough. There's no sibilance. It's very safe in that aspect, but it makes it a little bit more boring, because you lose a lot of that information that's up there. And with the switch on, it's all there. You can notice your cymbals. You can notice the details, the twinklies and the sparklies that songs have. And so that's how I listen to it. If I put it with the switch off, then they become very similar, although the bass levels are not equal. They become very similar in terms of the overall sound, with the exception of this still having more treble. All right, but at the end of the day, you could kind of say that this is a slightly more bass shy version of the CA, with ultimately better mid-range performance, because the bass is more subdued. Okay, compared to the Tigerism, they don't graph similarly. But they actually sound curiously enough, they actually sound very similar. It's a very much of a performance of trading blows here. There isn't really any particular time where the Tigerism stands out and beats the crown. Maybe with some male vocals it will be a little bit more open. Okay, it's not even a question of being correct. It's just more open sounding. Female vocals, I would say the crown takes the lead there, and then the extension and the last bit of twinklies and sparklies, they kind of trade blows again. It's very much song dependent and you know, well, genre dependent to a certain extent as well. I would say EDM is about the same. Rock, they trade blows. So these are two very equal sounding IEMs. Okay. Compared to, I'm going to go on this side now, and I will leave the SIM got to last. Compared to the wind is not as bassy, but it's also more correct sounding if what you are looking for is a more audiophile presentation. So in that aspect, the wind is definitely better. It's more correct sounding. Maybe it loses a little bit of that fun and engagement that the crown does have because of that extra bass. But the BQYZ, the wind's got loads of detail up top, and well, it's a reason why it's now joined that group of IEMs, single EDs that I particularly like, and I consider my reference. Okay, maybe you could say, oh, but it's not entirely a fair comparison because that's got two drivers, one is a bone conduction, so. But trust me, even if it didn't have the bone conduction, or even if you don't feel the bone conduction, I still think that the BQYZ is very capable and edges out the crown more times than the crown edges it out. Let's put it that way. Okay, the crown will be better than the wind when it's a more bass heavy genre, some EDM. But funny enough, for example, if I'm listening to R&B, I saw myself gravitating more towards the wind than the crown. But so ultimately, at the end of the day, it's very much the same situation as with the Tigerism. They kind of trade blows with each other, and there's no clear winner really. This is a little bit more detailed up top. You can feel that bone conduction doing its magic. This has got a little bit more bass down low, slightly thicker lower mids. You know, it is what it is. Compared to the Tri-I1, this has got, again, monstrous amount of bass. But funny enough, when I compare the Tri-I1 with the CA, which is, again, it's got loads of bass, the fact that they have not given it as much mid-bass, it opens up the sound very nicely. So we have a bass presentation which kind of actually ends up being very similar to the crown. The driver using it is very competent in that aspect. And then in terms of the mids and the upper mids and the treble, very equal, a little bit more detail here overall, a little bit better in terms of detailed retrieval, I would say, a little bit better as well in terms of soundstage. So soundstage, detail retrieval a little bit better here, timbre and tonality very similar, bass very similar, but with the Tri maybe once or twice just edging out slightly the crown, but once more, it's not a clear winner here. Okay, this is the loser, this is the winner. They very much are trading blows across the range or across the board of the songs that I listen to. So, done the sea, done the Tigerism, done the wind, done the Tri-I1. Leaves us now with the SIM-GOT, the EA1000. And the EA1000 is, I would say, probably the safest IEM to choose out of all of these IEMs. If you are not a person that likes to be adventurous and try alternative tuning styles, then you know a lot of what I've said is just become pointless to you, and the IEM that you should go for is the EA1000. If I compare the EA1000 directly with the crown, what can I say? Well, I can say that there, like I mentioned, is the safer one, that more people will like this than they will like this. This is better overall with more genres of music than what the crown is. I mean, you can listen to some classical music there, and it won't be offending let's say the correctness of the song, while over here it's definitely colored, it's definitely emphasized, and it gets to a point where it just gets a little bit I wouldn't even say boring or anything as well, but it just gets you get slightly tired of it and you just want to move along. So the EA1000 compared to the Crown, ultimately it's a question of, do you prefer to go for a tried and proven tuning method, which is more of which is obviously a harmony kind of style, and be safe and know that you will probably like it. It's also, I mean, the fact is that the EA1000 also has those adjustable nozzles, which again and allow for a little bit more diversity in terms of what you're listening to. But the comparison that I did here was with the way I've got it set up. And yes, if I'm looking now purely in terms of specific parts of the frequency range, okay, this has got more bass quantity, but this has got better bass quality, okay? And the quantity is more balanced out with the rest of the spectrum. Mid, so vocals, male and female vocals, definitely the E1000 is better. That's unquestionable. There's just more detail, more realism, more truthfulness, okay? And treble as well, that one takes the cake. It is a safer tuned IEM in the story, okay? It's an IEM that will please more people. It's basically, you could look at the EA1000 as an EA500 where they've given it bass, okay? That's, I think, the best way I can describe it. So this is an EA500 that's got bass, and the rest of the spectrum is equally just as well executed. All right. So there you have it, guys. It's not really a question here of the Crown being better or worse. It's a question of how its sound is and how it then matches up with the other IEMs that are here. Yes, there is cases where that equalness pends more towards it. Or where it actually is the better IEM, which is in the case of the CA. Yes, there is enough here to justify this as an upgrade over the CA. And it's down more to the fact that this has just got way too much mid bass, okay? Compared to the Tigerism, very, very evenly matched, as with the Wind and as with the Tri I1. They very evenly matched. It's down to songs, what does it do this better? Female vocals here come across very nice, perhaps better than the Crown. But the male vocals, I was actually preferring in the Crown, although they are slightly recessed. They just sounded nicer to me, okay? Is it a huge day and night difference? No, definitely not. With regards to the Wind, like I said, the Wind in terms of the mid-range is superior. It's got more detail, more twinklies, better technicalities as well. The Tri I1, very much the same situation as well. Better mids, more detail up top. Bass-wise, very, very similar. Okay, and then with the EA1000, it's just like I just mentioned. I mean, they are so differently tuned that it's not entirely fair to compare them. But it is there is a fantastic IEM, and the Crown also is a fantastic IEM in my opinion for what's been the premise of what was the idea. I think they've hit the nail on the head. And that's it, guys. I'll show you now quickly the graphs and we'll wrap it up. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section for the TFZ Crown. As you can see, the first two graphs that I'm showing you is the Crown with the switch off and the switch on. The switch off, I feel, kind of makes it a little bit excessively dark. And with the switch on, because that area there between 4.5 is really until up to about 8, 9 is quite a bit more significant, boosted. It opens up the sound a bit better. Bass, as you can see, is big. It's a big bass. We're talking about a 13 dB almost gain to the bass. So plenty of bass. This has got bass, plenty, loads of quantity. But the good thing is that they've emphasized it more on the sub bass. The mid bass is quite more restrained, and although there's a little bit of bleed, it's basically flat by 300 Hertz. And then the PENON gain is relatively non-aggressive. We're talking about a PENON gain of about 8 dBs, which is quite nicely done. And it picks at just over 2K. And then it's just how the rest of the frequency from the upper mids and treble is done that differentiates them as well. And also a little bit more extension on the version on the switched on version. Okay, so that's the one I'm actually going to leave and do the rest of the comparisons. First one I'm going to put up here now is the Venture Electronics, the CA. And as you can see, like I mentioned in the review, the mids, upper mids and treble are very similar. Very similar. I mean, there's not really that much of a difference here. Well, the difference is on the mid bass, which is ridiculous in the CA. Excuse me, but ridiculous in a good way. It's ridiculous because yes, it makes it loads of fun, loads of engagement there. It's got very much that old school vibe, but of course it's then gonna hinder the performance of the CA technically. And it's got extension past 10k. This here, on the one hand, yes, like I said, does hinder its cleanliness in terms of the mids and its technicalities, but this extension, this twinklies and sparklers up top there, excuse me guys, does help with making the sound a little bit more alive, more detailed. Okay, so that's the CA there. The next one I'm going to show you now is the Tigerism. Okay, and as you can see, the Tigerism kind of very similarly done bass. Peaks again a little bit more energetic, but around at the same point of 2, and then 2.2, some 2.2k more or less, and then it drops off. It's still got that roller coaster up and down, but overall it's not like it's radically better. I mean, the bass is still about, we still got a good healthy 10 dBs of bass. And it's the balance that they basically struck between the gain of the bass and the pinna gain, which makes it the Tigerism sound a little bit more detailed on occasions. It makes the male vocal sound a little bit less let's say second place, which is the case on the Crown. The female vocals, funny enough, actually don't seem as affected. And then it's got a little bit more info up top here, 8, 9, 10k, the Tigerism. Okay, but there isn't really a clear outright winner here between the two of them. There isn't. I think the decision here will be basically, do you like that sound, that style of sound of the Crown, or you don't like that style of the sound of the Crown, which is the better accessorized between the one and the other. Those things will kind of be the deciding factors, which obviously is also what justifies the $50-$60 price difference. So that's the Tigerism out of the way. The next one I'm going to show you now is the BQEYZ Winter. And the Winter, yes, the Winter does sound more correct. Okay, it's not as colored, it sounds more correct, lots more detail up top here, and although it's also a little bit raggedy and ups and downs, the balance that they've struck here has been very nicely done. Yes, it loses in the bass, definitely it loses in the bass, but it gains in terms of clarity up top and technicalities and extension past 10k. So if that's more your thing, then definitely the Wind is the better option. Okay. Next one is the Tri-I1 number 9. And the Tri-I1, as you can see as well, kind of similarish in tune to the Crown. The bass a little bit more prominent, but very similarly, emphasized in terms of being loads of energy, but somehow excuse me, and the balance, although you would think that okay, it's even more bass heavy, more maybe overly warm, because it's got lots of extension past 10k. It actually helps the Tri-I1 edge out slightly the Crown on one or two occasions, and especially in terms of the technicalities, it gives the Tri-I1 a better soundstage. There's a bigger soundstage, more resolution, slightly better imaging, slightly better detail retrieval as well. Okay, but look, it's going to be very much what you like listening to, how they fit you, what tips you're going to use, that are going to be the deciding factors here, really, because obviously price, yes, it does stay on the Crown side, but the truth is the price of the Tri-I1 is very well justified, because it also does bring very, very good accessories. I mean, the cable itself, it's way better than the cable of the Crown. And then finally, the one that's the most, let's say, probably the safest out of all of them if you don't want to take chances, which is the format. And the format from about 100 to, I would say, 4K is very similar, very similar. What you do notice then is that the format in the lowest of the basses, although it's got this difference here in energy, you feel more that sub bass, that kind of that tactile feel. You feel it more on the format, while on the crown you get more of an impact. Okay, it's a little bit difficult to explain, but there's more. It gives you the sensation of having more slam, and I guess that's down as well to the fact that it is a 12mm driver. While the other one gives more a tactile feel. And then the format as well, up top, has got way more detail. The way that the mids, up mids, and treble are done is it's more plateau, more flat, more plateaued. So it seems to just give a more pleasing, more satisfying sound overall. One detail here that I didn't mention earlier is, in terms of scaling, I did find that it scaled quite well, the crown, although it was very much dependent on what source I was using. For example, I did most of the listening with all of these IEMs with the Q15 from FIO. And why? Because the warmer tonality that DAC amp combo has just helps out in possibly controlling or taking away some of the harshness or some of the lack of polish that sometimes occurs on some of these IEMs in specific parts of the frequency. I mean, if you look here at the crown, you will see that the 5K area here, this area 4.5 to 5.5, 6K is a little bit pronounced, which if it weren't for the bass, that there would make itself known. And as well, if it wasn't for the fact that the source is a warmer sounding, more I would almost kind of say tubey kind of sounding source, this year would definitely stand out. And to that effect, when I tried it out, for example, with something like the S9 Pro Ultra, the S9 Pro, sorry, from HiFiGo, known as the Martha did showcase this area here more. It made it more prominent and led to some not fatigue, but me having to lower the volume a little bit in certain songs as well. Okay, so the source is very important. Tips, definitely very important, and the source is also very important to kind of make sure that the synergy that's struck between the IEM and the amp is a good one. It's a perfect one. Okay, and there you have it, guys. I mean, like I said in the beginning of the review, I don't want so much yet to give you guys the thing of you leaving this review thinking, oh, okay, no, the crown is not worth it. It's no. If you are looking for safe tune, a tune that's not going to offend you, then the format or even the BQIZ Wind will probably be the better ones, closely followed by the Tigerism. If you are feeling more adventurous, if you are feeling, okay, let me try something else different, then things like the Tri-I1 become an IEM to consider. The Vent Electronics, the C, it definitely becomes ones to consider, especially if you like that really thick mid bass, and of course the crown. So it's going to be very much what is that you like to listen to. How do you like that to come across? Do you like to listen to the music? Do you like listening and it being very correct, very true to the way that it was recorded, or you don't mind it being colored or being emphasized in the specific parts? Okay. Anyway, guys, this has been a long review. Any questions you might have, please feel free to ask me, and I'll do my very best to answer. All right. Take care. Bye. Bye.